Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles. Today marks the 109th anniversary of the capture of the village of Pozieres. In the early hours of the 23rd of July 1916, under the cover of a carefully fired artillery barrage, troops of the Australian 1st Division launched an attack on the fortified French village of Pozieres. Australian troops entered the village and after hours of bitter fighting were able to eject the Germans who had held the village since the earliest months of the war. One man described how the instant our guns lifted, the German batteries and machine guns which had been waiting opened fire on us, and a torrent of high explosive shrapnel and bullets were let loose. Men fell in all directions, but nothing could stop the boys now their blood was up. Into the trench they dashed and bayoneted and shot like fury. The capture of Pozieres was the beginning of a 6-week campaign that saw 3 Australian divisions rotate in and out of the line, conducting attack after attack along Pozieres Ridge. They slowly advanced towards the fortified stronghold of Mouquet Farm under some of the heaviest artillery fire of the war. By the time the Australians were relieved from the battlefield on the 3rd of September 1916, they had advanced a little over a mile from Pozieres at a cost of 24,000 casualties, 6,731 of whom were killed. Australian troops fell more thickly on this ridge than on any other battlefield of the First World War. Today, we pay our respects to those commemorated on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who returned home. This evening, we warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Osma Voy Richardson, whose story will be told shortly by Air Marshal Stephen Chappell, Chief of Air Force, who is the great-nephew of Lieutenant Richardson. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge Mr. Andreas Gregoriou, Head of Presidency's Administration and Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment, accompanied by His Excellency Mr. Antonis Samoutis, High Commissioner of the Republic of Cyprus in Australia, and their accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome Warrant Officer of the Air Force, Warrant Officer Air Force Ralph Clifton, Mr. Peter Baldwin, President of the Returned and Services League of Australia, ACT branch, and all those present this evening who have visited the memorial earlier today to mark the 50th anniversary of Operation Baby Lift, which took place in 1975 at the end of the Vietnam War. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and students on behalf of Neil College from Neil, Victoria, and Runcorn State School from Sunnybank, Queensland. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Hello, party! Attention! Hello, party! Present!
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is not by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Hello, party! Show down! Hello, party! Down!
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozieres, France, during the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Osma Voy Richardson. Osma Richardson was born on the 17th of September 1891 at South Yarra, Victoria, the eldest of two sons to painter-decorator Valentine Yaxley Richardson and Rebecca Maloney. The family moved to Adelaide when Osma was an infant, and he and his brother later attended Unley Model School and Kaya College. Osma passed his university entrance exams in English, history and algebra. He was a fine athlete for the Sturt Australian rules football team and the B-grade cricket team. Osma's younger brother Victor went on to captain Australia, scoring over 10,700 runs in his first-class career. After completing high school, Osma Richardson worked as a clerk in the Adelaide National Australia Bank. He was an active member of the Manthorpe Memorial Congregational Church at Unley. On the 12th of May 1915, aged 23, Richardson and four of his friends from church enlisted for service in the Australian Imperial Force. Given the rank of private and appointed to G Group Base Infantry, they went into camp at Mitcham for basic training. Richardson was transferred to the 4th Reinforcements of the 32nd Infantry Battalion, where he was promoted quickly and by late August was made sergeant. Having already applied for commissioning earlier in the year, he was granted commission to second lieutenant in September 1915. He embarked for active service from Outer Harbour, South Australia, aboard the steamer RMS Mongolia on the 9th of March 1916. At Suez in early April, he went into camp at Tel El Kebir, where the men continued training with the 8th Training Battalion. After the disastrous Gallipoli campaign, the AIF underwent reorganisation, and in May, Richardson was transferred to the newly formed 48th Australian Infantry Battalion. Roughly half the members were Gallipoli veterans, and the rest were fresh reinforcements from Australia. The 48th formed part of the 12th Brigade of the 4th Australian Division. They embarked on HMT Caledonia for France on the 2nd of June, disembarking in Marseille 5 days later. Officers and men then went by train to northern France, completing the journey in ordinary cattle trucks. On the 15th of June, Richardson was promoted to full lieutenant, and he and his men spent the next few weeks in the relatively safe sector known to the men as the nursery sector. Richardson's first taste of war came at Fleur Bay, near Fromelles, when they were shelled heavily on the 7th of July. The following week, they entrained south, and by the 5th of August 1916, they had reached Pozieres. Here, the 48th fought their first major battle. They were tasked with defending ground captured in earlier attacks by the 1st and 2nd Australian Divisions. They were then to push further forward to Mouquet Farm. The men entered the firing line to relieve their comrades on the night of the 5th and 6th of August. Here they endured what was said to be the heaviest artillery barrage ever experienced by Australian troops. Richardson's 48th Battalion alone suffered 598 casualties. The unit diarist recorded the scene as just one mass of craters and our ranks most appallingly depleted. Among the dead was Lieutenant Osma Voy Richardson, who was killed in action on the 7th of August 1916. He was 24 years old. The Red Cross inquiry into Osma's death concluded that as he led the men of C Company into battle, a shell exploded near him and he was killed instantly. Some days later, he had been buried, possibly at the newly built Sunken Road Cemetery nearby. By the time the battle was over and hundreds of wooden crosses were made and marked with the particulars of each soldier, their exact burial places were often lost. Fighting around Pozieres and Mouquet Farm lasted 7 weeks, with the Australians suffering a staggering 24,000 casualties. It is highly likely that the cross was commissioned as a mark of respect for Lieutenant Richardson rather than marking the actual site of his burial. In 1921, Osma's mother received a photograph of this cross, but by that time the final resting place of her son was unknown. Today, Lieutenant Osma Richardson, described in the Adelaide newspapers as a very gallant gentleman, is commemorated on the Australian National Memorial at Villas Britonneux. His name is one among 10,000 Australians who died in France during the First World War and have no known grave. Richardson's name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Osma Voy Richardson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will
Hello, party, present.
Lest we forget.
lest we forget.
Catapult party, our arms, stand. Catapult party, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.